Hello everyone. Like many of you, I just reached the mid-game of around level 50 and have started doing Nightmare Dungeons. I'm going to give you 3 key gearing tips to make the mid-game a breeze so that you can easily level and push into the mid-game. And while you might think you know what is best, it may surprise you that the tips I am about to give are not the same tips that apply to endgame gearing tips, and I'll explain why. Let's get to it. The first tip is to look for items that are at 700 item level or higher that can be upgraded to surpass 725 item level. So for example, these pants here, they were 706 item level, and by upgrading them 4 times, we got over 725. And what this does is it gets you into the next tier of stats. So you can get huge stat gains. Basically, they act as if they are ancestral tier instead of sacred tier. And another item here you can see is my bow. So it was 711 and I upgraded it 3 times. And preferably you want to find items that are at least 705 because if you have to upgrade it 5 times, it does get a bit pricey, though it can be done. So for example, this one I only needed to upgrade it 3 times. And by doing this, you can get huge gear upgrades that give you huge power spikes. And I've managed to do this with 3 different items, one of them also being my gloves. So these are above 725, which gives me +4 ranks of rapid fire. So I was able to go from +2 ranks of rapid fire to +4 ranks of rapid fire. Again, another huge increase in damage. Okay, the second tip is don't sleep on +% damage stats. So in the end game, people usually say don't get plus damage stats on your gear, go for vulnerable, go for crit damage. But the thing is, crit damage is only really good if you have high crit chance. And in the mid game, you probably don't have real high crit chance. Vulnerable is still good, but don't sleep on those plus damage stats. So for example, my bow here, you notice that I have plus 61% close, plus 52% distant, plus 44% core, and 29% poisoned enemies. And in the end game, these stats might not be ideal, but in the mid game, they are huge. Because if we look at my all damage stats, if I was to get rid of my bow, notice that I don't really have a whole lot of plus damage stats. I only have plus 48% to all damage, 17% crowd controlled, etc., etc. They're all pretty small numbers. And that's because I haven't leveled up enough to get my Paragon bonuses. So a lot of these plus damage stats come from your Paragon board, especially like your glyphs end up giving a lot of plus to all your that all damage bucket. And if we haven't set that up yet, because we're lower level, then getting plus damage on your gear actually helps a lot. So for example, this bow here, just by adding that extra 130% into my all damage bucket or so, um, that essentially increases my damage by probably around 70 to 80% damage. The third tip is do not sleep on max life. So in the mid game, your life isn't very big. So for example, here I have 2,500 health, and if I took off my pants, then we'd have only about 2,000 life. Now, the plus 500 max life on my pants is actually huge because that is 500 out of 2,000. So that makes up an increase of 25% effective health. So by adding that 500 life, I'm getting 25% increase in effective health, which is more than you're going to get from adding like a damage reduction stat of say 7% or something like that. Okay, so it's definitely huge in order to get those max life bonuses in the mid game. I also have it on my breastplate, for example, and the combination of these two is 1,000 out of my 2,500 life pool, which is an increase of 1,000 out of 1,500, which is approximately 66% effective health pool increase. So to recap, the 3 things that are going to make your life a lot easier is 1, look for those 700 plus item level sacred pieces to upgrade them to ancestral. 2, look for and do not sleep on +% damage stats in the mid game. And 3, max life is going to be king in order for survivability. I hope these 3 tips make your mid-game go very smoothly, and make sure to check back on the channel for more updates and more tips later on. Bye-bye.